Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. I'm joined as ever by Sid Lowe to go through what happened on Matchday 28. Hello, Sydney.
Good morning, Philip.
Lots for us to discuss in the next half an hour or so. So let's get straight to it. These are the results from Matchday 28. Friday night saw Villarreal score a brilliant 97th minute goal from Nicolas Pepe to draw 1-1 at Alaves. Saturday saw Girona thrash a really, really poor Athletic Club side 3-0 at Montilivi. Atletico beat Getafe 1-0 in a funny old game. Brilliant goal from Nahuel Molina. Abkar got sent off for pinching Sorloth in the balls, and Getafe really went for it and probably should have got something out of this game, but it finished 1-0 to Atletico Madrid. Oviedo, the mighty Real Oviedo, gave themselves a tiny, minuscule, tiny chance of avoiding relegation by beating Oviedo, by beating Valencia by 1-0. Sydney was there to witness it and celebrate only the 6th goal that Oviedo have scored at home all season. And Real Madrid beat Elche 4-1 at the Bernabeu. A goal from 70 meters from Arda Guler, absolutely miles out. Unbelievable strike from the young Turk, and loads of youngsters coming on for Real Madrid in the second half. It felt a bit like watching Real Madrid Castilla. Sunday saw Mallorca score late to beat Espanyol 2-1. Barcelona beat Sevilla 5-2, a hat-trick from Rafinha. They moved back 4 points clear of Real Madrid. Betis and Celta played out a 1-1 draw, and Real Sociedad pretty comfortably saw off Osasuna 3-1 in the Sunday night game. The Monday night match is Rayo against Levante. Now, if you love Spanish football, have you thought about joining us at patreon.com/TSFP? Patrons get the Monday and Friday podcasts without any adverts. Plus, there's a Q&A pod, which is a long podcast. We dedicate nearly an hour to that every week, answering your questions. There's a bonus pod as well. And there's the newsletter, which is packed full of Spanish football goodness, which goes to every patron every single Monday. The TSFP diary, which is us telling you how we cover Spanish football up and down the country, recorded live on scene across Spain from different matches, and you get access to the Discord as well. You can sign up from €4.75 a month, so just over €1 a week. It's even cheaper to get annual membership. So come and join us. Now, we should start, Sid, by reflecting on Joan Laporta winning the Barcelona presidential elections with nearly 70% of the vote. Completely unsurprising.
Yeah, absolutely unsurprising. Probably the easiest way excuse me, of defining this is to say that on Sunday afternoon, Joan Laporta won the elections on the same day that Barcelona beat Sevilla 5-2 in a stadium that now holds 62,000 and is on its way to holding over 100,000. And that, in a nutshell, is the situation. For all of the doubts that there's been around Laporta in the time that he's been in charge, he inherited, of course, a really, really difficult situation. For all the question marks about things like the signings, the palancas, the famous palancas, and so on, this is a club that, in the most basic terms, is feels like it's heading in the right direction from a fan's point of view. Has a really, really good team that won a league title under Xavi Hernandez, but moved to Hansi Flick, has been one of the most exciting teams to watch that fans can remember, that is now building a new stadium, which is starting to look really, really good. And at the weekend was full in terms of the whole of the bottom two rear rings were now completely full. You've got a president who's extremely charismatic, who even in those moments where people from the outside look at it and think, not sure about that, the reality is that most of the people on the inside love it. The sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? The rambunctiousness of Laporta is actually a vote winner.
Just there's a line that he said during the campaign, which was "Más macarones, menos PowerPoints." More pasta, less PowerPoints. He was pictured sort of cooking pasta with some of the socios, and he was basically, forget all this nonsense. I'm just going to be here with you guys having fun, basically.
And that you're right. That's a brilliant way of looking at it. That sums up his kind of personality. And yet at the same time, obviously, that would fall down if the team wasn't playing well. Yes. If the team didn't have a manager that everyone believed in, if the stadium project was collapsing, and the stadium project has been problematic, it hasn't met all the deadlines, there's question marks about the constructors, all these kind of things. But the bottom line, as I say, is on Sunday, there were nearly 60,000 people in a stadium that's looking really, really good and watching a team that scored 5 goals. And that essentially is what it comes down to. Obviously, there's always more to it than that, but that's essentially that. We've talked lots and lots of times over the last few years, for example, about the whole thing of the palancas, this idea that you sell off some of your assets and obviously you lose some of your earnings in the long term because you're selling potential future earnings to try and stabilize the club now. And one of the things that we've often said, and to be honest, I'm surprised that this doesn't, how do I put this? It doesn't get talked about as often as I think it should, which is that the idea of the palancas is, oh my God, look at this terrible situation, you're selling assets. Now, it's problematic. There's no doubt about it. And we've talked about this and we've said it's problematic to sell 25% of your future TV revenue, to sell the access to some of the VIP suites and so on. But this is also about what's the original palanca. The original palanca for any club is sell your best players. And of course, Laporta took a decision, looked at it and said, right, the most important assets are our players, because if we're not a team that's succeeding, if we're not a team that's winning, nothing else stands up. And so he basically took a decision, which was, rather than selling our main assets or the assets that people usually sell, which is the players, let's sell some of the other assets. And I think I'm not going to go full Laporta apologist on this because I don't think it's a sensible approach and I don't think it's correct. But I think that the decision to do it that way round, or at least the decision to put the weight behind the first team, if you like, albeit you can still get it wrong, by the way, because you can do palancas and then not sign the right players, or do palancas and not be able to register players. And you know, the Dani Olmo situation was a pretty bad one. And they got away with it in the end, but it was a pretty bad one. But
they got away with it.
And they got away with it, and they would argue that they managed it really, really well because they went and put pressure on the right places, and they did a legal challenge, and they went to the CSD and all the rest of it. But I think that the decision is broadly vindicated in that they have a successful team.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, he bet everything, I guess, on the team being successful, right? Because if you do all this and the team isn't successful, then you're in serious trouble.
And there was a comment last night, and this fits a little bit with the Macarrones line from Enric Masip, who's his kind of right-hand man, I suppose, in the club. And he said, you know, people talk about this as if, well, you know, it should be much more business-like. He said, well, let's not forget this isn't a business. This is a football club, and that's it. You just said he bet on the first team, and I suppose the argument or the answer to that is as he should do, because it's a football club. And there's a famous line from Johan Cruyff, which is the money on the pitch, not in the bank, and I suppose that's where they've gone.
114,000 Barcelona members were eligible to vote, and there is something gratifying about seeing
very much
democracy in action in modern football, one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
Members voting for their president.
And of course, look, it comes. Democracy can be messy, and it comes with
messy.
that wasn't the pun I intended it to be, but you know what I mean. It can be messy. It can be problematic. It can mean that you have this kind of swirl of if you like, competing power bases. That you have media leaning one way or the other. That you have a degree of manipulation. All of the things that come with political campaigning come with being a democracy. But I think you're absolutely right. You watch it yesterday and you think, you know what? Even those bits where you think, nah, it's still, wow, it's a football club voting for its president. That is actually a pretty good thing, really.
And like I said, not just any football club as well.
No, absolutely.
The biggest, yes. Onto the football then, with Barcelona beating Sevilla 5-2. A hat-trick from Rafinha, who in the last game against Newcastle, I think we questioned his performance. He looked really off the pace. I mean, his touch wasn't there. He just was not the Rafinha that we have grown to expect. But he was super on it right from the start in this game. And scored those 3 goals, and he could have scored more as well.
Yeah, he was. And I'm glad you said, and he could have scored more as well, because, of course, it would be easy to take a step back and say, whoa, calm down. He scored 3 goals, 1's a deflection and 2 are penalties, and sort of say, well, this is wasn't up to much. But I think you're right. It was about the attitude. It was about the aggression. Now, I am going to now go, whoa, steady there a little bit and say it was a fairly passive Sevilla side, that the first 2 goals come early enough that the game is done very early. And that obviously the focus is, let's see if this happens against Newcastle, because that's the proper test.
It's true. It was a funny old game, this, because Barcelona were 3-0 up without having actually done that much.
Exactly. It wasn't. But to be honest, the opening wasn't that great, was it? To be perfectly honest.
But still, a hat-trick for them. A first ever appearance in La Liga, a debut for Xavi Espart at right back, which is important. Nicely taken goal from Dani Olmo as well, and a really good day at the office for Barcelona, able to rest and rotate players. Pedri went off at half-time. He had 26 touches in that first half, which was low for
Yeah.
his standards. Let's see if that little bit of rest serves him in good stead as well. A quick word on Sevilla as well, Sid, who haven't won away to Barcelona since 2002. They had beaten them 4-1 earlier on in the season at the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. I just want to highlight someone who's we've been talking about, someone who readers of the newsletter will know that he was our one to watch months ago. Little lad called Oso, who scored a goal and provided an assist in this game and is looking like one of the most impressive players to come out of the the Sevilla Youth Academy for a good while now. He was a shining light for Sevilla, as he has been in the last few weeks.
And playing a little bit further forward this time as well. Usually as a fullback, this time playing in the line of three. What I love about him, I mean, apart from the fact that Osso is such a great surname, just been called Bear, is that he feels like a footballer from another age. He's got his socks right down by his ankles. Frankly, he's got a bit of a big arse. He wears his shorts quite tight. He sort of looks like, do you know what I mean? Do you know what it is? He looks like every minute of the game is the 90th minute or maybe it's extra time in a World Cup quarterfinal, and everyone's exhausted and he's playing like that. But he's got something about him. He's got, what I think he's got as much as anything else is a willingness to try things, a kind of an enthusiasm for the game, which doesn't manifest itself as hyper intensity like a Rafinha, but manifests itself as, okay, I'll have the ball, I'll go for this, I'll try something, I'll do something a bit different. The game that really underlined this for me was the derby.
Yes,
and I don't want to take it back 3 weeks because we're talking about this week, but he came on, and the difference in kind of attitude and willingness and I suppose belief or confidence in actually playing some football was so big. And that's the thing that's the thing I like about him, is to say that he sort of looks like a player from another age.
They are working on a new contract for him with a much increased but not prohibitive buyout clause. So let's see, because I think a lot of people will be looking at also with interest. He's a very, very interesting player, and like I said, had a not going to say a big impact on this game, because the goals when they came, the game was more or less done and dusted, but still a goal and an assist, and a very nice goal and a very nice assist as well for Oso at the Camp Nou.
Hello, Philip. Did you know that today's podcast, TSFP, is brought to you by friends at NordVPN?
I do now. You guys know that we travel a lot covering Spanish football, whether it's following Spanish teams around Europe in the Champions League,
or going to 3 league games in a weekend in Spain.
The best way to make sure you've got access to all your content from back home is using NordVPN.
And we'll be using it this summer when we head to the US for the World Cup.
You and Al will. I may or may not be going to the US, but if I do go, I certainly will be using NordVPN. You can use it to keep up with the football or TV shows or movies. You can access your subscriptions back home very easily with NordVPN.
Yeah, that very easily is very, very important if you're not tech savvy like, some of us.
Like you, Sid.
It
improves your internet security, which is important if you spend a lot of time using public Wi-Fi. Let's say the ones that you use at train stations, airports, hotel lobbies.
You mean the kind of places where I am most of the time?
Most of the time. You can connect with just one click. It's one of the fastest VPNs around, and you can use up to 10 devices with one account. For more information, this is very important. You need to head to nordvpn.com/TSFP. Don't forget the /TSFP.
And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You also get 4 extra months for free. So I'm just grabbing a pen, Philip. If you could tell me the link again, please.
You can write it down, or you can just go to the show notes where you'll find it. It's nordvpn.com/TSFP. Now, let's talk about Real Madrid beating Elche by 4-1 at the Santiago Bernabeu. Alvaro Arbeloa continuing his slightly hysteric, hyperbolic Madridismo by saying, now I can die happy after seeing this game, which,
I'm starting to love Arbeloa because of these things. It's like every game, there's another one, which is, I mean, fundamentally, I like the enthusiasm, and I think it's a good thing, and I think the idea of embracing the players and so on. But every now and again, it's just that little step beyond what it needs to be, isn't it?
Well, he's able to die now in a happy state.
I mean, I hope he doesn't.
He wasn't previously.
Yeah,
before this game, he wasn't, but now after beating Elche 4-1, he can die happy.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he doesn't. And the
Yeah,
reasons for that are obviously that there was a sense of purpose about them, that he put. But at the end of the game, there's 5 youth teamers on the pitch. That for me. That was actually the even more Arbeloa moment was when he described this as being like the Quinta del Buitre, which is the defining generation of youth team players that were the heart of a team that went on to win 5 league titles in a row. And he said, this is like the Quinta del Buitre. And I understand his point in that he's saying, you don't normally get this many kids on the pitch at the same time. You don't normally get this many players coming through. But the Quinta del Buitre is, it's quite a big claim. And Arbeloa does a lot of this, of linking people to the past and reinforcing this idea of Madridismo. We saw it in midweek when he said that Fede Valverde was a 21st century Juanito. And this was like the Quinta del Buitre. He said Emilio Butragueño, who of course was the figurehead of the Quinta del Buitre, will have been proud watching this. I think he would have been happy. I'm not sure he would have necessarily drawn the parallel, but it is very good news. And, beyond the sort of the silliness and sort of, kind of slightly poking fun at the statement, I actually think it is important. And I actually think it does speak quite well of Arbeloa. Yes, it's true. There's been a huge amount of injuries. It was 10 the other day. I'm not sure how many it was this time round because a couple have come back. Was it 8 we're missing this time? I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was close to 10, but yeah.
Maybe it was 10 again. Yeah. And so obviously part of it is obligation, but he's had the determination to keep players in, and in particular in the case of Garcia Pitach, to play him in the Champions League, which in truth we didn't think would happen. And his response, Pitach, has been, did I call him Garcia Pitach? Why did I do that?
I don't know.
I feel like is there someone out there called Garcia Pitach? Anyway, I've had a head fart there, and apologies. Anyway, and Thiago played, of course, very well in the Champions League and played very well again at the weekend.
There has been an improvement from Real Madrid in the last 3 years. Jesus Garcia Pitach is a retired Spanish footballer.
There we go. Right, yeah. Garcia Pitach, who was also an agent, if I remember rightly, but I'm not sure.
Or it might be the same person.
It might well be, yes.
Anyway, what was I saying? There was an improvement from Real Madrid in the last 3 games at Celta Vigo, against Manchester City, and against Elche. Not necessarily in terms of football, although, they have scored goals and won those 3 games. But in terms of commitment, Sid, in terms of intensity, in terms of willingness to run, I think in those 3 games they were noticeably better. Again, as I said, not necessarily in terms of constructing attacking options, but in terms of the bare minimum which you require from Real Madrid is the kind of intensity and the willingness to run. I think the introduction of Thiago Pitach has helped considerably with that. And dare I say it, Sid, in the second half, with all those canteranos out on the pitch, I'm not going to say they look better than they did in the first half, but they played with the kind of sort of freedom and fluency and excitement that I think would have made a lot of fans quite happy, and maybe make them rethink, not, let's drop all the first teamers and bring all the youth team kids in. No, but actually there are players here that can do a job for us in the first team now.
Yes. And there's a line from Jorge Valdano, which I always like, which is to say that the most important person in a youth structure is always the first team manager. It's the person who finally opens that door. And this maybe is a demonstration that you can open that door. Now, obviously, look, let's not be naive about this, and let's not fall into the trap of saying, put all the kids in, as you rightly say, because to be honest, when Bellingham's back and when Mbappe's back, they will get in the team. And equally, and it's in particular across the midfield,
they don't get in the first team, but they can be. I think they can be useful. I think
of course they can. Well, in fact, they are being useful. I mean, look, again, I don't want to overplay this because this is one game, and we're talking about 5 Canteranos as if it's been 5 Canteranos for the last 6 weeks. It hasn't been.
But 5 Canteranos for 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Which is why
against Elche at home.
Which is why we put, and with the result already pretty much in line. Yeah, because they've already scored a couple of goals, and which is why I want to back away slightly from the Quinta del Buitre thing, or maybe quite a long way from the Quinta del Buitre thing. But you do need to give them opportunities, and of course there is an underlying basic thing here, which is to say that the kids in the Real Madrid Youth Academy should be good. This is the biggest club in the world. The kids in their youth academy should be good. And why should they be good? Well, they should be good because the preparation of them is really good, because the facilities are good, because in theory, the coaches are really good, because in theory, the culture at Real Madrid tends towards this. And also fundamentally, of course, and this is a bit like schools. We talk about good teachers and all those things are important, but fundamentally, it's about catchment. And it's about finding those players in the first place. And of course, if you are Real Madrid, the best players go to you. In fact, Thiago is an example of this. Thiago was at Getafe, at Atletico Madrid, at Leganés, and ends up at Real Madrid. Why? Because if you keep progressing, you're going to end up at Real Madrid, even at youth team level. So the idea that somehow, how could you possibly drop the kids from the academy? Well, because they're probably the best kids in the country. Or with Barcelona. And obviously, we've talked a lot about the fantastic work they do at Athletic, at Real Sociedad, and so on. Kids at a country in a big catchment area, a huge city, players internationally as well that come to Real Madrid, albeit there's limitations about who you can bring in. So, yeah, they should be useful, and they can be useful. Obviously, I do think that Pitar is a step again. I think that's a different case we're talking about. I think that is a player where we're looking at him and thinking, actually, there might genuinely be something here. And curiously enough, do you remember the build up to the Albacete game?
Go on. Yes.
When Arbeloa was telling us that Cestero was the best number 6 in the country.
Yeah.
And here we are looking at other youth teamers, not the one that at that point Arbeloa was telling us is really special, which isn't to say he won't be special. It's not to say he will be special, but it's to say that there are other players as well.
Yes, Cesar Palacios coming on. We saw Dani Yanez produce an assist for Dean Howson's goal. Wasn't Dani Yanez's debut, but he coming on for his second appearance. Thiago Pitar, Manuel Angel scoring an unfortunate own goal. Some good players on show for Real Madrid. We should mention Fede Valverde continues to fly. El Pajarito, who's now called El Halcón. He was the little bird, now he's the falcon.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that Halcón thing is... I'm resisting calling him that because I actually think it's really forced.
Yeah, let's not dwell on that.
It's a desire to take a nickname and go, oh, he's not a little bird, he's a hawk. And they're like, he's not a hawk. It's not really even the way he plays. But anyway, that's by the by. Yeah,
not a falcon. He's a hawk.
Well, I suppose is it a hawk or is it a falcon?
No, you're right. No, it is hawk. It's a hawk. It's a hawk.
Except that a peregrine falcon is an halcón peregrino.
He scored a brilliant goal on the edge of the area. And it wasn't a very Fede Valverde goal either, although we're moving away from the idea of a Fede Valverde goal now because we've seen him score such different types of goals over the last 6 days that he's not just smashing it in from 30 yards. He can do it all, Sid.
Yeah, I mean, I still think the greatest shot that Fede Valverde's ever did was into the living room in Vallecas, but, that's by the by. And that was the most Fede Valverde thing ever, just absolutely smash it. But yes, this was very un-Fede Valverde in that he gets the ball on the edge of the area in the kind of position where, yes, you would expect him to shoot, but instead of levering it, he kind of opens his body, twists a little bit, and basically puts it in the top corner. There's a touch of subtlety about it, which I like. Here we go. This is all about personal predilections, obviously, right? But I always get frustrated when best goal awards and the top 10 goals of this month or this season or whatever are really just lots of people smashing it, right? Because I understand that those are good shots, but I don't know about you. I am much more fond, or much more appreciative is maybe a better word than fond, because you can absolutely love a guy that smashes the ball into the net as well, of a goal where I feel like it's really, really deliberate. Because quite often when it's a smasher, I think, oh, he's just hit it and it really could have gone anywhere, including in someone's living room. But when a player is putting it somewhere, I'm much more impressed, to be honest. And in particular, I'm much more impressed by a goal that's a brilliant move involving everyone, which is why when at the end of the season, everyone says, oh, yeah, but it was a 30-yard goal. How can you choose the goal where the guy scored from 8 yards? I always think to myself, I'll tell you why. Because the move was brilliant. The perfect finish is all about finesse, not about just someone twatting it.
Real Madrid beating Elche 4-1 and staying on Barcelona's coattails. We do have a title race. It is just 4 points.
We do.
And they're going to keep going, certainly into the Clásico, and then that could be definitive, but we'll see. Elche are going down, Sid?
I'm starting to think so.
Yeah,
I'm starting to think so, and of course they are now in the relegation zone because of this defeat and because Mallorca then picked up points on Sunday, and yeah, they're in big trouble. I wonder what's going to happen now. We said even earlier in the season when things were going well, what's the reaction going to be when things don't go well in terms of having a manager who's so wedded to an idea and so committed, and that conviction is a good thing, or we think it's a good thing. But what happens when it goes against you? Do the people around him start doubting? Do the players start doubting? Does the club start doubting? Does he himself start doubting? And Elche are very definitely facing that question now.
Plan B is to do Plan A better.
I think so, personally. But there is a temptation from a lot of people always is Plan B is to do Plan B. In fact, it's to do Plan Z. Get as far away from A as you possibly can.
Tell us about your trip to the Estadio Carlos Tartiere. It was emotional seeing Oviedo beat Valencia. Sydney was on the verge of tears.
It was emotional, and the reason it was emotional wasn't just because we won, because I'm actually a fairly placid football fan. I sort of take it as it comes. I'm relatively, I'm not placid in the sense that, I travel a lot of distance to watch games and stuff like that. But actually, you know what? I kind of accept refereeing decisions going against us for the most part. I kind of accept defeats for the most part. But this was really tense because we scored the first. We've started to think, hang on, maybe there is a chance. We score a brilliant second that's ruled out. A little bit debatably, although I trusted you and you said to me, yeah, no, he's standing in front of the goalkeeper. It should be ruled out. I said, okay, then. Admittedly, I thought it was for a ludicrous claim on a foul at first. And actually, listening to the VAR video, have you heard it? They call him over for the foul first, and then he looks at the offside. And the foul is not a foul. I'm thinking, and I must admit, paranoid football fan, at that point, I'm thinking, you're just looking for any reason, aren't you, to take it off us? Anyway, so you go 2-0 up, then it gets taken away 1-0. And I'm thinking, I've seen this before. Mm-hmm. We are drawing 1-1 and it's over. And I was 100% convinced that Valencia were going to get the equaliser. And the tension in the last 20 minutes was unreal. And yes, when we did finally get to the final whistle and people were sort of dead on their feet, it was quite emotional.
You still going down?
Well, on Sunday morning, I thought we do have a chance. We do have a chance. And then Mallorca winning the way that they won, I'm afraid we probably are. But you got to keep fighting.
It was 5 points the gap to safety after Oviedo won, which feels possible.
Well, 5 points with us going away to Levante next week, which obviously it's an obligation but also an opportunity, and with Mallorca and Elche playing each other. So you think, hang on, by the end of next week, we could be really close to genuinely believing there is a chance. But as I say, that Mallorca victory, which I have to say was. That Mallorca victory has damaged us. And I don't want to go down this route because it sounds like I'm saying it as an Oviedo fan, but Mallorca, the game completely changed with a red card. They then had a goal ruled out or potentially ruled out with a foul in the build-up to it. The referee went and looked at the VAR, decided he couldn't see it clearly and decided to give the goal. And you watch it again and again and again. You think this is really, really clear, except for the really, really, really key piece of information. Do you see directly the contact? The referee decided, and it's fascinating actually, listening to the video recording of him talking to the VAR, the referee says, I can't see it. Have you not got another view? I can't see it. Now, you see so many things that indicate a foul, but the referee decides he doesn't see the actual foul. I think it's a ropey decision, personally. I think he's wrong, but I can understand the process by which he arrived at that conclusion.
Big win for Mallorca, which obviously impacts a lot of other teams towards the bottom of the table as well. Before we go, this is what happened in the Segunda. Some big results at the top of the table. Leaders Racing won 2-1 at Cultural Leonesa, but Castellón lost 4-1 at Sporting Gijón. So it's Depor who are second. They won 2-1 at Ceuta, and Almeria are level on points with them in third after they lost 2-0 at Zaragoza. Malaga are just a point further back. They beat Huesca 5-3. And elsewhere, Valladolid beat Leganés 3-2 with a 92nd minute winner. The Segunda continues to be one of the most unpredictable divisions in Europe. Anyone can beat anyone, and they usually do. So
do you know what, Phil? The second division is so good. I think I quite fancy being there next year.
Yeah, right. That's the real quiz. Yeah,
that's the real one. That's what we want.
That's where you really want to be. So there we go. We're over at patreon.com/TSFP for the rest of the week. Loads of content there. I know I say it a lot, but do come and join us.
But it's true.
It is true.
You say it a lot. It's true. You would not a word of a lie, Philip.
Thanks, mate. There's Champions League coming up this week as well. Some absolutely massive matches. We'll be reflecting on them on Thursday's bonus podcast. So come and join us at patreon.com/TSFP. And if you don't want to do that, we'll be back on Friday to preview what's coming up on Matchday 29 of La Liga EA Sports. So come and join us then. Adios.
Cheerio.